All right, so it is Thursday, April 16th. And Cindy was just asking me about the schedule. So before the quarter started, the schedule had been different. It was a little more like I had, field trips with the kids and spring break and different things that I was jockeying around so that we sometimes, normally we want to meet every other week, and then the alternate week happens in between. And it wasn't like that for the spring because of so many different things. And then all those things went away. So before this quarter started, I just realigned it to every other week.
Okay, because I had taken it, I had signed up for the whole year, so I had just put it in. So
Yeah,
that's why
so
it
I
doesn't match up.
apologize for that. It is a little bit different. It's more regularized.
Okay, I'll have to remember my little brain will have to remember to change it.
Yeah. It is, I'm including it like all the time in the emails as well. So.
Yes, but I didn't notice because I'm distracted.
Yeah. So that's what happened. Like, we're not going to Ashland, and we're not going to the lava beds, and I'm not doing Sonoma County Writers Camp. And so we're here every week. At least we're here, right?
Yeah, it helps that you put everything in every email.
Yeah, it's so funny because my kids are in middle school and their teachers are teaching online and on Zoom for the first time. And they're doing things like, when this first happened, like a month ago or something, and they were like told, okay, do this for a week or two, they put up a website with links, and that's it. Like, they're not sending reminders. They're not. I'm just like, people. I said, I have people who've been with me for 10 years. I send it like every day before class. Like, these kids are in middle school, like, and they're in a crisis. So please, you do a little more handholding. So, yeah.
You're a model.
So even the August.
I don't know anything about August or October. We have not canceled August or October. We aren't really enrolling in August, October, and we stopped doing PayPal payments because if we have to refund them, PayPal isn't refunding our fees. So we actually lost money in April. I'm going to see if I can get them to do it. But anyway, so we are not. So, I mean, anyway, we are sure. So certainly people can enroll, but they just have to pay by check. But we obviously haven't been doing huge promotion either. Although Ellen and I are going to do a free event just for the community and, soon. But in any case, so no, we've not canceled August or October, and we're just waiting for the state of the world. And, honestly, camp camp is always limited to 12. It's open air, beautiful, blah, blah, blah. So if we're in a different moment than this one, it may be great, but I just don't know yet, obviously. Because I'm not going by my intuition and I'm not in absolute charge. So we're just waiting to see. So anyway, welcome everybody. And I have to say, this has been such an interesting journey because first it was like, oh, we teach on Zoom already. We're like perfectly primed for this moment. And then it was like, everybody's sick of Zoom. But I do think we're really lucky because we have a pre-established community and we really have, this ongoing relationship. And we have an activity to do that actually lets us journey into so many different worlds and meet so many new people. And that's exactly what we aren't getting to do, in our lives. So I've just really been so grateful for all your stories and wonderful images and characters and the work we do together. That said, we're being incredibly gentle about goals. There is no failing. There is no possibility of failure. It's all just how we handle it. And so let's just check in about like what happened in your writing life in the last week or two. You can go ahead and put that in the chat. Alrighty, so yeah, so we call it nonfiction when life starts to unspool plot in our way. So Debbie notes lots of nonfiction happened, and I think we're all caught up in like this incredible true life trauma novel. But we all have different stories and we all have different limiting beliefs, and so we're all on different journeys. But she says, I'm culling together the book in a yearbook and trying to finish it up. So yay for deadlines. Cindy says, I typed up my exercises from last week and that was about it. And that was a lot. We're going to amend this. I spent a lot of time trying to get a contract going with a new client, but was stymied by AB5 and applied for PPP and EIDL. I think you're starting to lose me.
Disaster assistance grants.
Oh, thank you. Good.
Yeah, the Paycheck Protection Program and the economic something disaster loan.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Bureaucracy. But I
Democracy.
did finish Euphoria by Lily King, which is a beautiful book.
It is. I'm listening to and reading Writers and Lovers right now.
Yeah, that's next up.
Yeah, it's a good one for writers.
Mhm.
Great, good. I mean, I'm sorry about the client. That's totally sucks.
And
Is
no
that
word from my agent. So I'm still.
Well, I mean, that just takes a while because it's like it gets in line, and then But I did hear from my agent's assistant that editors are buying. So
Yay.
she was like, yeah, that's okay. So we'll see how that keeps going. But all right. And our other Cindy submitted the essay, yay, and worked almost every day on her fiction draft. She has to submit excerpts to her once and formerly in-person writers group. So that's her goal. That's great. Again, yay deadlines for next week. Back to the short story. Yay multiple projects. Awesome. Diana, I'm feeling pretty good about the progress with my new version. I've worked on revising 3 chapters this week. Fantastic. And I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so happy to see you from Italy, from the nighttime, from the future. Yes. Yeah. Interesting, like just tracking all of that. All right, Shannon, still working on my novel manuscript deadline of April 30th to send it to the editor. Good, getting closer. Some days I think it's great, other days I think it's crap. This is, Annie Dillard says the voice that says it's incredible, I don't remember her language, but the voice that says it's terrible are mosquitoes to be swatted away. So, but yes, there they are, like the angel and the devil, right? Let's see, but I'm happy to have the project, yes. And I wanna say this is so every time I send my book to an editor, which has now been like 10 times in the last year or whatever, I get really depressed, and the waiting, as like Cindy's waiting, right? The waiting is horrible and whatever. So this time I was like, okay, I have to do something else. And so I set myself up, on another project, and I still kind of went in a dip, but then I came out because now I know what I have to do. Like when I have my writing time, I know what I have to do. So I just, like you have other manuscripts, just like, and it doesn't mean you can't be like, I'm going to take a vacation, I'm going to take a break, or I'm going to clean the house, or whatever else needs to happen. But then like slot that back in, even if it's for a smaller time than when you're like racing towards a deadline, because then you're just back on the track of like you and your conversation with your creative process, which is actually the uplifting part of this whole thing. It's not even the getting published. It's not even the celebrations and the whatever. I mean, all of that ends up, that's wonderful and all, but it's really it's sort of like, you don't want to have an incredible wedding, but not have a happy marriage, right? So and the wedding is like maybe the greatest day of your life, maybe, but it's one day, maybe 2 or 3, depending on how many you want to have. But, but the key is the marriage, right? So that's your marriage with your writing is make sure you're still feeding that while you're waiting. But bravo, this is good. Mastering the Process with Elizabeth George. That's her writing book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Great. Dara, now it's you sent it just to me, but I think it's because you're on the phone, right? I can read it out loud. Okay. By the way, and maybe if you can put this in the chat, but Dara has this fantastic Feel Good Friday newsletter, which I have to say, like, look forward to all week. And she finds like the best memes and quotes and videos that, and just like, it makes you laugh, it makes you cry a little, but like in a good way. And it's very joyous. So I highly recommend signing up for that. And I don't know if you can say it out loud, or if you can put it in the chat too, that would be great.
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll put it in the chat.
That's just joyful. So she said, I sent my first 3 chapters to a friend working on a book coach certificate. Awesome. She's using my story to practice on, so it's free. I love it. Haven't made any progress on the manuscript, but will now be writing on Sundays. Yay, Sundays. Excuse me a moment while I let my dog out. Okay. That's fantastic. Yeah, I know. I kept thinking like I was going to have all this extra time. Why? I don't know. If you're already like doing your thing from home and then now you just have your kids working, it's like, that's not more time.
Nope.
But good. Yay for Sundays. All right, Catherine, I've been fleshing out a character who is the ally for Marilyn, my main character. I've some of the work in this class and I like her. She is Cassie with sea turtle tattoos. That's awesome. Lisa Melter Penn, I wrote something every day. Yay! Some days we're super distracted. Sure. But you wrote. I finally meditated this morning and got back into my body. Oh my gosh. Body? What's that? No, that's super great. Someday I'm going to exercise again.
It's hard to find.
Yeah. I said to Ellen, I was like, Ellen, you have to like text me, like her daughter's sheltering with her, so they're doing like the bar video, and I was like, you have to text me whenever you're going to do it, and then I just have to do it at the same time you do it, even though it's totally asynchronous and I can do it at any point. But I just realized I have to do everything with somebody else, so like just text me. But anyway, good. Being in your body, I rumored to be an excellent place to be. That said, Lisa continues, I am 99% done revising a story. Yay. And then we'll submit it this week. Fantastic. I just printed out a rough draft of my memoir homework that I'm trying to whip into shape. Still seem to write the same thing 5 times. That, you know, that it makes it confusing to work with, but it makes sense as a process. So happy with the warm, clear air, trees, lack of noise pollution. Yes, it is really gorgeous. The birds here are going nuts. Pat, preoccupied with both of our birthdays this week. All right, here we go, everybody. I'm unmuting you. If it doesn't work, you unmute you. All right, you guys have to unmute you. It doesn't want me to have any power, but you have to unmute because we're gonna sing. Anyone else have a birthday this week? Anyone else besides Pat? That's right, Bree. Anyone else? Pat and Bree? All right.
I had my 50th 2 weeks ago.
Oh my God. All right, anyone else? Anyone else at
I had a birthday April 12th. Does that count?
Yes. And Cindy,
Mine was March 20th, so it was last month, but it was after the lockdown. So
And mine was April 14th.
oh my God.
All right, here we go.
I'm going to send some March one in there. March 16th, the day of the quarantine began.
Yes, yes. Oh my God, we're all like, you guys are all in this. Like, all right, ready, everybody? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday
to you. Happy birthday. Your March and April birthdays.
Happy
Birthday to you.
And many more.
The
good news is nobody will invite us to
you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
I like the jazzy version.
Happy
Yeah.
birthday to you. So I had to put the Stevie Wonder in there, y'all. So
Thank you. Says Felicia dropping into the bay.
no, I just learned how to put that little background on my phone, and you see my head keep popping up.
Yeah, I like it. Water coming out of the water. You're like a mermaid.
Yes.
I'm on my phone. Sorry.
All right, well, this is going to be a birthday party because also this was Bree's request. We'll talk about that in a minute. Passion. I'm not sure I met exactly her hopes, but it certainly triggered something interesting. So, all right, hang on. Now I'm muting everyone. Okay. but anyway, so this is going to be a birthday party, a writing birthday party. All right, let me do that. Okay, where were we? We were here. Okay, Carolyn. Goals, stay on track with booking your scenes, and I did, turning in an actual low point. Yay. Now I'm taking a break to focus on my dating book, changing the ID characteristics of my dates to protect privacy, making progress thanks to Book in a Year support group, writing 5 days a week. Fantastic. Excellent. Oh, Pat continues, but realized I had done an additional chapter, and not bad. Yay. Felicia, thinking story, writing my insights down as I think about the story I'm living. Fantastic. Beautiful. Bree says, yes, I'm moving along with my rewrite. Ted gave me a present for my birthday to read and edit my book. Yay, which he did. Even better. There's like the intention presents, and then there's the actual carry through presents, and they're both wonderful in their different ways, but that's fantastic. So I'm working my way through his suggestions, just beginning. Wrote a poem titled Quarantine, regular in my morning pages. Great. So I'm still writing and reading and waiting for my muse. Sounds like your muse is there. This is what it looks like, right? There's this story that I keep thinking of. I think I told it to Debbie the other day, but the one about like the guy in his house and it's flooding, and the neighbors are evacuating, and they drive by and they say, come in our car, come with us, there's a flood. And he says, I'm gonna trust in God, I'm staying right here. And then the water rises, and he's on the second story of his house, and then some other neighbors come by in a boat, and they say, come with us, we're evacuating, come with us. And he says, I trust in God, I'm staying right here. And then the waters keep rising, and he's on the roof, and this helicopter comes and says, come get in the helicopter, we'll take you away. And he says, I trust in God, I'm staying here. Waters keep rising. Next thing you know, he arrives in heaven, and he says, God, I trusted in you. What happened? Why didn't you come for me? And God said, I sent a car, I sent a boat, I sent a helicopter. So this might be your muse. This, the birthday present, the poem, the quarantine. In fact, Brie, I've been thinking that you might have a wonderful piece or even call from your AIDS nursing book about nursing, being on the front lines of a pandemic.
Yeah.
I keep saying, my friend Dorothy says, has this great, this is our first pandemic, we're doing the best we can, but of course it's not really the first pandemic of our lifetimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, all of the deaths, well, that's what got me writing. Really, originally.
I just think maybe pull some of that out and kind of look that's just a perspective I don't feel like we've heard that much, and we're very aware right now of frontline workers and of the pandemic, and to just talk about doing that,
Yeah.
Anyway, something and you have lots of beautiful writing. I mean, maybe just look through that book and see if there's a piece that might be pulled out and
something that I can work over.
Yeah, framed a little bit and sent off,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Okay. And Lisa, I had a good week and a bad week. Yes. And I'm planning on starting another good one right now. I know it's like each week can be so many weeks.
Yeah, each day can have so many hills and valleys.
Yeah, there was somebody on social media that was like, I can't tell if I've worn this shirt for 7 days or if just today feels like it's 7 days long. I just put it on this morning. Yeah. All right. Lisa has been listening to Storymakers podcast when you walk the dog. That's awesome. It's a good way to do it. All right. Did I miss anybody's check-ins? All right, and Dara's putting in, did you put in the link, Dara? Do you need help with that? I know, because I know you're on your phone.
No, I did put it in. It's at darajane.com, and you can, there's at the top, you can just click on the Friday Feel Good, and there's a subscribe thing right there. So it's just darajane.com, but I did put it in the chat.
Okay. Very easy to do. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Yay.
Thank you for doing that. It's really lovely.
It's keeping me sane.
Me too. And I sent it to my mom and my sister.
Yay. Good. Share it along. Good. All right.
Okay. Well, Bree, do you want to say anything about your request for the topic? Like,
I wrote a piece with another writing group that I'm in. These 4 guys that I've known for probably 20 years, and we've been writing together, and it was very factual. I'm working on that piece about my liberation, about with my husband when I became when I met Ted, and when I got liberated from a husband, and I went to conscious raising and all of that. So I was writing on that, and it was very factual. And all 4 of them said there's no emotion in this, there's no passion. And I realized that my writing, I'm really good at telling the facts. I can get my nursing says I can tell, your blood pressure and the fever and your symptoms, and I can do those really well. But I don't get into the next level of the passion, and I'm trained not to be passionate about anything, because you don't need a hysterical nurse in the emergency room on any level. So
well, yes,
that's part of my training.
Say, just like if you're speaking to your patient and you say your blood pressure is out the roof, and you really have to completely change your diet, and you're saying it dispassionately and factually, it's still going to have a huge emotional impact on that person. And I suspect that there are certain people, possibly other than these 4 men, who might read the facts as you deliver them about raising 5 children in a non-liberated household, and who might have a strong emotional reaction to those facts that they may not have had.
I realized that I want to feel passion when I'm writing. I want to feel that passion, and then I thought, how do you do it? Sometimes when I'll read something, I'll cry with what I'm reading, and that, but I usually mostly read mysteries, which again, it's just the facts. This is the way it happens. So anyways, so I thought, I want to be able to bring some passion into my writing. And how do you do that? So I asked Elizabeth, how do I do this? So here we are.
I asked Dorothy Allison and Lily King and Louise Erdrich and Raymond Carver and James Baldwin. So that's what I do. So yeah, I think it's actually great. And you'll see, I actually was struggling because I had a few different requests, and I was trying to pull together different classes, a couple weeks ago, and it was a little bit like of a challenge. I don't know why. And so this one's sort of the one I landed on, but I don't think it's not the all uplifting passion. It's a little more the mixed bag passion, but I think it'll work for us, and we'll see. It'll be fun. So let's start with, thank you, Bree, great topic. And let's start with Dorothy Allison. I'm going to read it first because I just think her voice does so much, and then I'll talk a little bit about it, and then we'll write. All right. By the way, Tin House is putting out some of their archival stuff, and what's the other website that the guy put? It's like Between the Covers, or I can't remember which one.
Yeah, Between the Covers.
Yeah, that's the
David Naiman.
Yeah, so he's connected to Tin House. So anyway, they just put out a couple-year-old talk that Dorothy Allison did on dialogue, and you just get to hear her voice, and she's just great. So,
and they also just released one on with Ingrid.
Contreras.
Because she gave a really great craft talk apparently at Tin House, so they just released that too.
Oh, good. Yeah. So if you go to Between the Covers on the podcast, they're doing those craft talks. They have some great ones too. Anyway, so Dorothy Allison. Okay. So here we go. Where I was born, Greenville, South Carolina, smelled like nowhere else I've ever been. Cut wet grass, split green apples, baby shit and beer bottles, cheap makeup and motor oil. Everything was ripe. Everything was rotting. Hound dogs butted my calves. People shouted in the distance. Crickets bloomed in my ears. That country was beautiful. I swear to you, the most beautiful place I've ever been. Beautiful and terrible. It is the country of my dreams and the country of my nightmares. A pure pink and blue sky, red dirt, white clay, and all that endless green, willows and dogwood and firs going on for miles. 2 or 3 things I know for sure, and one of them is the way you can both hate and love something you're not sure you understand. So some of the things we've already been working on, the way that the pulling of specific details, and we've talked a lot about how details create mood, emotion, motivation. I mean, they give us character, and obviously create atmosphere. And one of the things we started to see with the Ta-Nehisi Coates a few classes back is that the details don't necessarily have to fit a stereotype of what makes you feel X emotion, positive or negative, right? And that actually there's something very powerful here that we see in that mixture of details, right? In the combination of like cut wet grass and split green apples with baby shit and beer bottles, cheap makeup and motor, right? Like those, and the juxtapositions, and that beautiful and terrible, that there's the Niels Bohr quote about like, I don't know, you can Google it because Bob did on Tuesday, but it's sort of like, you know, the opposite of a small truth is a falsehood, but the opposite of a great truth is likely to also be true. And so we kind of see this here, right? The most beautiful place, the country is beautiful, I swear to you. And of course, swearing something, you know, as a reader, we always perk up, right? When someone's promising or swearing, it's like there's a subtext right away to that. Why does she have to swear it to us? Well, because we've just gotten a very mixed image of it, and then she's going to fess up, beautiful and terrible, right? And then great verbs, right? Shouted, bloomed, budded. So just the strength of verbs we see here again. And then those details of pure pink and blue sky, red dirt, white clay, so color and specific details, and the kind of kitchen sink approach of pulling in a lot of details and kind of acknowledging that the beauty and the terror come in all of them, not just these ones are beautiful, these ones are terrible. So like really being willing to pull all that together. Debbie, is there any way you would like to read this?
Sure. I'd love to.
You have the accent. Debbie's our real life Southerner. I just know like Greenville is probably like something else entirely.
It's a hop and a skip from Clemson, South Carolina, where my husband grew up. So, all right, here we go. Where I was born, Greenville, South Carolina, smelled like nowhere else I've ever been. Cut wet grass, split green apples, baby shit and beer bottles, cheap makeup and motor oil. Everything was ripe. Everything was rotting. Hound dogs butted my calves. People shouted in the distance. Crickets bloomed in my ears. That country was beautiful, I swear to you, the most beautiful place I'd ever been. Beautiful and terrible. It is the country of my dreams and the country of my nightmares, a pure pink and blue sky, red dirt, white clay, and all that endless green, willows and dogwood and firs going on for miles.
Thank you. Beautiful. So yeah, I'll put that in the chat where to find the interview. Let's go, not Debbie's performance, that'll be on the video. Let's go ahead and do 10 minutes right now and dive in and see what's there. Follow your passion. Thank you so much, Debbie. Couple more minutes. Okay. Passion. I've put you in trios. We will do 12 minutes. And here you go.
Hi, Felicia.
Whoop, she got popped away. Oh, you're not assigned. Pat, you weren't here. Oh,
That's right, I wasn't here.
You're gonna be
I sent you a note.
Oh, you're gonna be a quadruple.
You know what? I'm fine. I can wait.
No.
Or
I'm putting you in a room. You're gone.
okay.
Wait, and then what was Cindy?
Was we all had very short pieces to read.
Funny.
Nice things to say, and it was good. I had a piece I'd previously written that nobody'd heard, so that was good to have that.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry, I got really confused. I was like trying to do the 3 and the 2, and I usually write it all down, and I hadn't, and so then I just was like, I have no idea how many people have gone or where we are.
Elizabeth, did you get my personal note to you?
No.
On the chat?
I didn't. You know, I often don't see the chat when I'm teaching unless I'm reading it like for goals.
Okay, I had a reason I had to be away for a few minutes immediately, so sorry.
No worries. Take care of what you need to take care of. All right. Hi, everybody. Sorry for the confusion. And I think, Cindy, you were in the middle of saying something to me, and then I popped out. Were you?
Me?
Yeah. Cindy
No.
Survivey?
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
I was probably just complaining about how stressful it was to go to the market this morning.
Yeah, I know.
Oh.
So, what did we learn about passion?
Well, I think it's very detail oriented. So my two cohorts were Felicia and Bree, and what I really appreciated about their pieces were that it was just so detail oriented and just so specific. And it really, all of the specificity just sort of resonated throughout the whole piece.
Yeah, that is something we look for, right? In passion, we want specificity here. No generic passion. Yeah, great. Anything else?
I think our group had a lot of sensory details, variety of sensory details, not just visual.
Yeah, all the senses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Catherine did something really interesting in her scene. It was full of sort of compelling plot clues and story hooks. But what I think really captured me and Dara also was just the rhythm of it. She had these very sort of driving, like locomotive kind of sentences that propelled you forward, which was just nice, especially hearing her read them.
Yeah, I agree. We haven't talked about that much yet, but rhythm is so important here, and I think we'll hear that a lot in the next one as well. Yeah, good. Felicia, can you unmute? Let's see.
Yeah, I love this kind of counterpoint in Bree's piece where she begins the piece with describing the perfect house, which has these beautiful details that both are tactile, a velvet couch, a painting on the wall. Like, I'll see this house forever, but the one reason I'll remember it is a slate floor where when the children fall, they crack their teeth. But in this perfect house, but the first line is, we had the perfect house. And so it's beautiful counterpoint. And
that is, I love that. And that idea of counterpoint, right? Which I think it's like the juxtaposition of things, the counterpoint, the unexpected, and we catch hold of those as readers. We're looking for what doesn't kind of go together. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
One of the things that occurs to me is that sometimes you have to be open to hearing the beauty of things and to be open to feel the emotions that are there. Because Debbie and Felicia were raving about Dorothy Allison, and I've read her, and I find her very difficult to read because she talks about rape and she talks about really hurtful things that are hard to read. And and sometimes to write that, she lived through that, but then to be reading, you have to be open to that and to be willing to take that into your psyche.
Yeah, I agree. And she does not make it easy on you. I mean, that's not her purpose at all. Yeah, and it is very painful. Yeah, I agree.
Oh, sorry. I think there's that thing, which I'm going to go, I just want to say this about Bree's piece again, that beauty has pain in it. The passion does have pain in it, or that thing that's on the edge of pain. So for someone to remember a childhood home as the perfect home, and yet knowing that there's places where you were hurt in that home, to me, that is so like something Dorothy Allison would do. A child named Bone, the child will never forget, so, yeah.
Absolutely. No, it's very
more than her pain even, I think of the strength of that child.
Absolutely. And I think, sometimes what we're ready to read differs from moment to moment, somebody was talking about how like this generation, I think I mentioned this, like this generation of kids will have a completely different sense of what a crisis is, right? And it's not going to be a bad grade or a breakup, and that there's a strength in that. And I just think there are moments when we're not ready, when we don't want to hear something hard, or we don't want to press that in ourselves. And there are other moments when we need that, we need it. So, yeah. All right, let's go to Lily King, woman of the hour here. And this is from Euphoria. And now next week in the alternate week, and it's the same for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but the alternate week, I put in that whole long end scene of Cathedral, or not the whole scene, but like half the scene, because it has the same line, I kept at it, in that. And so when I read this piece from Lily King, I heard that echo to Carver, and I thought, well, let's put that in too. But So just the connection, the excitement, you know, the movement of time and action and in similes and the rhythm, right? What Lisa was talking about, the rhythms you'll really see here. And I love that this is also, I mean, it is between two people who will eventually become lovers, but it's a different kind of seduction and a different kind of passion, an intellectual one. And I just love how that is sort of balanced here. So they are working on like an article. I think you're more fresher than I am, Cindy, but I think
they're working on a kind of a system of classifying cultures. They're anthropologists in Papua New Guinea, and they're working on a system of classifying people based on a grid.
Thank you. Yeah. And so Nell is actually like sort of loosely based on Margaret Mead. And the narrator is this guy who comes in, and Nell is married, but he sort of falls for her.
Yeah, there's a love triangle type of thing.
Exactly. So they're kind of
this is 3 people. Yeah, 3 people doing, involved in this.
We kept at it. The sun came up and went down again. We believed we were in the throes of a big theory. We could see our grid in chalk on university blackboards. We felt like we were putting a messy, disorganized, unlabeled world in order. It felt like decoding. It felt like liberation. Nell and I spoke of never having felt aligned with our culture, with its values and expectations. For long stretches of time, it felt like we were crawling around in each other's brain. Just gorgeous, right? Like, and kind of this, again, this like passion that isn't necessarily, carnal, but is very, intense and exciting, the excitement of it, right? That energy. And so that the phrase where we kept at it, that's in the Carver when the guy puts his hand, or the blind man puts his hand on the guy's hand as he's trying to draw the cathedral. And the guy's, so awkward about it. And then he gets really into it. And somewhere in here, you'll find it next week. Anyway, he says, we kept at it. And just, there's something about that, like the kind of the forward momentum of passion, right? And all of the energy of it. So see if you can capture that in the details and in the rhythms of the sentences, and in like what pulls these people to something that maybe it isn't just a carnal passion, right? Maybe it's something else. See what happens on the page. Let's do 10 more minutes. Couple more minutes. All righty, let's hear some of these. Who would like to read? If you're visual, I can see your hand. Otherwise, unmute and shout out. All right, Lisa Meltzer Penn, and then Diana. All right, Lisa, can you unmute yourself? All right, thanks.
Okay. I pasted a part of it. Okay. So this is in the hospital with my mom.
Okay.
By the time I gave up on the carafe of hot water ever arriving and reached for the coffee carafe, the coffee was only warm. None of us were really coffee drinkers except Mom, and obviously she wasn't having any. It was for us, but I guess it was for her to have in the room, something familiar, though she'd lost her sense of smell years earlier. I drank a cup of lukewarm coffee washed white with 3 creamers. It was bad, a disappointment. Can we please get some hot water, I said to the room. And we did it last, but by then it was 5 p.m. and by morning the whole tray was gone again. A new one came, just coffee again. It was hit or miss, black and bitter, she liked it. I couldn't fathom. I tried to like it that way, like I taught myself to like peanut butter in my teens. But it needed milk, and it kept me up at night. I'd given up on real sleep by then anyway, but craved it each night, crawling, practically weeping into bed past midnight, just to wake up early all over again the next morning at my aunt's house. She only had green tea. But when visitors stopped by the hospital room, I offered them whatever we had, a gracious hostess. We have coffee, we have tea, we have cookies, I announced. What can I get you? My demented tea parties, Dana started calling them. I would be a hostess, goddammit.
So beautiful. It just, it's the kind of, first of all, just the way that like life in a hospital vigil gets very reduced to these elements, and the kind of powerlessness of like, is it water or is it coffee? And like how, and yet all of that resonates out to these much larger, emotional issues around powerlessness and trying to drink the coffee because, the mother loved it, and offering at the demented tea parties, and then the kind of flashback to like, I was like to the quirky, like teaching myself to love to like peanut butter. I wasn't sure if it was the peanut butter that needed milk or the coffee. But I loved that. I love all the places that it took us emotionally and in memory to be in that room and to be, you know, and to be doing just the logistics of that vigil. Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, Diana, if you will unmute, and then Carolyn's going to be next, and then who's going to be after Carolyn? Cindy. All right, and then Felicia. Awesome. All right. So now we're on Diana.
Okay. It felt like he was crawling around in my brain, a bit too much actually, trying to discover who I was with words and knowledge. He insisted on teaching me bridge, more crawling around in my brain, which I have to say was missing the bridge program. My brain was all muses and river nymphs and powerful goddesses stranded on lush Greek islands. I wanted him to stop showing me chemistry experiments with blue liquid in the dormitory sink. I wanted him to leave my brain alone. And I wanted him to reach for moons and stars and flesh.
I love it. I love the like a bit too much actually, you know, and then like the bridge, like more crawling around in my brain. I love that. And then I love the muses and the nymphs, and then like the blue liquid in the sink, the, you know, the dormitory sink, and just that kind of that struggle of like, don't go down this path as the way in, right? That's really wonderful. It's a great example of like conflict in passion, right? Different kinds of passion. Yeah, I really like that.
Kind of like frustrated passion, I would say.
Yeah. But you know, and a lot of stories about conflict. So here, so it's such an interesting thing to think about, like people approaching each other, you know, in ways that aren't connecting, right? Is a really interesting conflict. That even they might think they sort of want the same thing, but they don't want to go about it the same way. And so Truby argues, John Truby talks about really in story, it's not people who want two different things, it's people who want the same, who are fighting over the same thing, whether it's in a mystery, you know, whose story is going to be, you know, the truth, or, you know, here it's like whose pathway is going to be the way to connect. And if nobody gets off theirs and they don't connect, you know, it's not going to be either. So yeah, wonderful.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Oh my gosh, it got rearranged. Did Carolyn get booted off? Carolyn? Okay, well, let's go to Cindy, and then when Carolyn boots back on, hopefully, we'll go to her. Cindy, with an eye, yeah, with two eyes.
Nice flower pot, Nick said. He stood next to me at the table, and together we examined the vase. I glanced at him. He was smirking, but not unkindly. The Mayans would rip your heart out for saying that. It was the only response I could think of. His presence seemed to wipe language from my mind. I turned back to the vase. Glyphs marched around it, blocky characters with feathered headdresses, cat-like creatures that might have been jaguars, strange birds. The paint had faded, leaving only traces of burnt orange and red. Have you decoded it yet? Nick asked. His teasing tone was gone. I snorted. I picked up a magnifying glass and focused it on a character that looked like an angry demon, its teeth large and an enormous tongue unspooling from its mouth. No, but I will. That's all I got.
Wait, what did he say to her that she said no?
Have you decoded it yet?
Decoded it.
You're looking at a Mayan vase with glyphs on it.
Yeah. I love that demon. I got slightly distracted. So yeah, interestingly, like smirking but not unkindly. So right away I'm like sussing out like, who is this guy? How does she feel? And I would even say, like, when she says, you know, Mayans will rip your head off, I wanted to know how he reacted, and I think she would want to know too, right? Because she's kind of gone somewhere with this. Which I liked that. So I wanted to know her reaction, kind of, and like, what was she after? What did she expect versus what happened? Yeah, so I like that. There's like a lot of kind of figuring each other out going on here, and it's really there in the actions and reactions and in the descriptions. And so I think you can just layer in a little bit of the kind of interiority, and then because you've got all the dynamics. Yeah, it's great.
Thanks.
Is this a new thing?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm revisiting something I started a long, long time ago, but with entirely new eyes. I haven't even pulled it up to look at it in years. So, yeah. But they're Mayan archaeologists.
Fun. Good. All right, we still don't have Carolyn. So we will go to Felicia. Oops, can you unmute, please? Oh, Felicia, can you unmute yourself?
And
Oh,
just,
thank you.
Okay, everything didn't get in the chat, but I'll add it in a moment.
Thank you for coming.
Throws, okay, throes of passion, absolute throwdown. That's what this was. Galloping horses of the apocalypse. No, let's start our engines. No, let's get down to it. No, wrapping our heads in clouds of passion. That word again, intruding on an argument, a fight, the war between us, fighting to reach the climactic moment when love is out of reach, when bloodletting is all we're about, clawing eyes out, ripping open throats with a finger crooked for that purpose, watching his eyes wall to the whites of satisfaction, knowing he was that angry, watching her saliva fly like bullets and splatter in foaming clusters of bubbles on her cell phone screen. She was cussing like a soldier, cussing like a World War I soldier, rushing through mustard gas to get to her enemy, not a lover, not a beloved, an enemy that must be felled. How dare you ask me to pity you, a white man, she said, squeezing out the words like a woman in a field squatting to give birth. My mother's white, he said mournfully. My father's white. I'm white. He tipped his head backwards. I'm bleeding, he said. A dark, snaking line of ruby dark blood leaked from his nostril. She couldn't help but smile. She wasn't the only one wounded. She cut him to the quick. Do you feel me now? She wanted to say, do you feel me now?
Woo! I love it. I love it. I love first of all, the rhythm, the no, the recurring no, and just the rhythms there that you talk about the galloping horses of the apocalypse, and then we kind of are in the gallop, right? And I love how it comes back again later to the battlefield and the mustard gas and the enemy, and then later again, she wasn't the only one wounded, but how that then all the kind of the literal details of their interaction weave in with that, with the bloody nose, I think, and then I love the metaphor of like squeezing the words out, like like somebody squatting on a field and squeezing out a baby, right? I mean, so it's like we're like on this battlefield / like field, right? Like it just, all of these kind of worlds are in there, and I feel the emotion of them in the scene between these two people, right? How dare you ask me to pity you, a white man, right? So and anyway, really powerful. And just all those details, like the eye whites and the saliva and the bullets and the bubbles, and so it's like it's the cussing. I mean, it's full of those specific details, and the way that they're seesawing between the kind of charge that they have, because there's some intensity here that's beyond just hate, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful.
Okay.
All righty. Carolyn's back. We've been waiting for you.
Thank you. I lost my power.
It's your turn.
I'm glad I'm back. Okay, and I didn't lose my piece. That was good. Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Okay. We came every day working for nothing, wanting women to have the information about their bodies, to save themselves, to save ourselves. We counseled pregnant women, we examined sick women, we taught women who'd never looked down there how to tell when they were ovulating or when something was not right. We taught about orgasms, we taught about herbal remedies, we showed movies about lesbians. We were changing the healthcare system, we were saving women, we were saving ourselves. Just put it in the chat.
Yeah, great. Talk about rhythms, and it's interesting because it was like, so we came every day, and then like there's a part where women is the repeat, women, and then it's sort of later in the sentence, and then taught, showed, right? So the verb becomes like the repetition and the build, and then changing and saving. So there's the repetition, and then there's also the build. And so when we go from like changing to saving, that's a build, right? And so, but it ties back in, so it also creates a rhythm. We know that we're like singing back to that verb, right? To pull forward and build. Yeah, very powerful. Great. it feels like a march, you know, we're on a march here. Yes. All right, one or two more. Anyone else like going? Yeah. All right, Bree.
I took that first line. We kept at it, preserved, never thinking the marriage should not have taken place in the first place. It was like the 25th mile of a marathon where you are depleted, every bone aches, your feet are on fire, and yet you keep thinking of the success at the end. But with this marriage, there was no carrot, no joy, just the day-to-day trudges. We kept on, mostly because we knew no other place to go, could not see the other choices. We tried the parallel existence, the open marriage, and variations on affairs as our way of continuing. What would it be like to throw in the towel, give up? Where would I go? What would I do? I couldn't see ahead that far.
Fabulous. I love, you know, like preserved, never thinking this right, so this is going to change. I love the whole, like the 25th mile of a marathon, but there's, you know, and so then depleted, aches, fire. So there's a lot of rhythm in that. Like we're running, thinking about the success at the end. But the metaphor falls apart, right? This is where, but we're on that 25th mile and there is no carrot, there is no goal, right? So that's a very powerful image. And, you know, we couldn't see where else to go, and doing the, you know, trying these different things as a way to continue, and what would the end look like? And I just couldn't see. It's a great setup for a character, you know, in need of a story, right? And it's one of those things where you can really see it's something very human, even though the embodiment of this particular situation might not be the specific one. It might be, right? Other people have been in the situation, but it might not be that. But anybody who ever has wanted to know, like, how do I get out of something when I can't see that far ahead, right? That's, it's just very powerful thematically as well. Yeah, good.
Thank you.
All right, any burning desire? Anyone want to be that last voice in the middle? All right, Cindy. Can you unmute you, please?
These are my soldiers again.
Great.
Bruco, no one now called him by his real name, dictated a missive to his young wife, filled, when Tunyin could understand the earthy dialect, with references to fruits and fish and fur, which he finally deduced were in reality parts of her body. Some of the boys who knew the dialect had grabbed their crotches and moaned. The girl was clearly cherished and longed for in a rather coarse way, but with a fierce hunger that only a soldier at the front could experience. Bruco seemed to leave the campfire and descend into a trance-like state. Tunyin had to reluctantly bring him back to earth, since he knew that the girl in question, while undoubtedly fecund, was almost certainly illiterate. You realize the priest or some older man is going to be reading this to her, Tunyin offered, pen poised in midair. Nothing yet committed to paper. It was difficult to reconcile this boy's unabashed carnal enjoyment of his ragazza with his and Melia's chaste affection.
Nice. That was a kind of unexpected turn too, right? The comparison to himself and his own very different experience. So yeah, so I love first of all, I just love no one now called him by his real name, right? So that just, there's a sense of change right there. And then just the fruits and fish and fur, great. I would actually see if you can play around with delaying the revelation that it's parts of her body, because you have some, like maybe you could move up, you know, the guys grabbing their crotches and the intensity of the longing. There's this, it's just a great payoff that the fruits and fur, you know, and then what it leads him to understand, and then his needs, you know, it's a great, I just think if you can push it down a little bit and let us hover with the fish and fruits and furs, and then the building of the groan, you know, the whatever, the grabbing the crotches and the moaning and the intensity, I don't know, play around with it. I think it might be a great slightly delayed payoff. And then I just love, you know, undoubtedly fecund, but most certainly illiterate, right? And so having to say, like, some priest is going to be reading this to her. And it kind of made me want to see his reaction to that. Like, how does the young man react to that comment? Does he already know? Does he not care? Is he, does he can't care, or because, he, whatever. So yeah, great material. All right. Let's go then to number 3, and this is from Louise Erdrich. And so, again, this isn't specifically carnal at all, but this is coming back from a hunt, and you can see all the complexity and the, again, that kind of like not everything is all sort of easy good or easy bad. It's just, but the complexity of it and the sensuality of it and the passion behind something other than the, other than the sexual. He glowed, for the meat strapped to him had frozen a marbled blue. The blood from the moose was flour on his coat and on his face. His features were stiff, the strength in his limbs near exhausted. I freed him from the burden he held to his chest, carried it home in my arms. He followed. I severed the rest from Eli's body and stashed it outside in the lean-to. The meat stood on its own in pieces, a moose transformed into the mold of Eli and armor that would fit no other. He was stock still, reluctant to move, his mouth dried open as I took him through the door. I took off his clothes. I actually don't know what that verb is, told something through the door, but it's not told. I took off his clothes, found the piece of saved liver under his arm and ate it. Then I put a drop of water between his lips, wrapped him in a quilt and led him near the stove. I removed the kidneys and heart from Eli's pocket and cut them into smaller sections. My hands shook as I prepared the pieces with salt. My mouth watered as I put them in the fire, and at the smell of meat roasting, I almost wept. I gave the first cut to Eli, who fell on it gratefully. As I put my share into my mouth, as I swallowed it, I felt myself grow solid in the chair. Lit by the burning stove, everything around me sharpened. Thoughts returned. You're my son, I said, moved by the scorched taste. You're my relative. Isn't that amazing? So, and just again, like the sensual details and using the language, I freed him from the burden he held to his chest and carried it home in my arms. But again, we're talking about, frozen moose meat, but the language of that has a kind of a romantic and also like a mother-child. I mean, it has so many layers, resonances to it. His mouth dried open. I found a piece of saved liver under his arm and ate it. The drop of water, wrapping him, removing kidneys and heart from his pocket and cutting them. My hands shook as I prepared the pieces with salt. So these very literal, logistical, sensate details that also, again, just resonate out with the care and the emotion of those shaking hands. My mouth watered at the smell. I almost wept. Eli fell on it gratefully. So all the heightened emotions that come with the most passionate exchanges, and certainly being fed in the middle of winter is bound to be one of those. And so I think what all of these examples kind of accumulate to remind us is that whether we're talking about place or we're talking about, an intellectual connection, or we're talking about food or any kind of survival, or any moment in a story is going to be fueled by passion because it's a necessary life-changing moment. And that kind of sparks us, and I think in non-crisis times, it's sort of easy to forget that when the stakes are high, we are on high alert and everything matters. And I think right now we're kind of primed to remember that and to remember that anything in our story is going to be a moment where it really matters to the characters. And whatever they're doing, even if they're sleepwalking, even if they're, shutting down, they're doing it with a kind of intensity that is not just, ho hum, here I am on my unordinary day at my writing desk trying to make something happen, right? So the passion is going to be there in any story because it's going to be one of those kind of moments that, we're living through. All right, so let's do 10 more minutes. maybe 8. Couple more minutes. All righty. How quickly goes the time? Dara, do you want to start? If you can unmute.
Yeah. Okay. The only way I knew it was a squirrel was the tail. Everything else was smushed and smattered in the slush, but the tail was still bushy and thick and brown. Staring at the carcass at my feet, I took in every detail, guts and blood and death, unexpected death. What happens when he doesn't go home again? Is there a squirrel somewhere wondering what happened? Rather than go around it, I stepped over it. This seemed important, this decision, but I have no idea why. It was just a squirrel, a dead squirrel. Someone will come clean it up, or it'll rot until spring, ashes to ashes.
Beautiful. I love how, again, how much resonates about this, you know, I mean, first of all, the only way I knew it was a squirrel is the tail. It's just like kind of grabs us, and then the description is very vivid, and then the kind of the questions about, you know, is there another squirrel somewhere like wandering around longing, and then stepping over it rather than going around it. And I just feel, I mean, you know, in this moment where we're surrounded by news of death, it feels very vivid, and whether we were or not, I mean, I think it just resonates with that whole question of like, how do we approach death? How do we handle it? Right? So in this little encounter with the squirrel, there's so much sort of at stake. Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you.
Pat, we can't see you, but would you like to go next?
That is fine. I was just deciding that it was time to go back to the group, but here it is. This continues a piece of memoir, and actually is the next scene I assigned myself to write. We have moved to a little New England town, and my listeners heard me read when I had been invited over and over again to go to people's churches and how that was. But this is next. Each morning after Leon left our little house for his new job, I roamed around the house, straightening up, making the bed, doing the breakfast dishes. Then what? I read, figured out what I could make for dinner with what was in the house. I didn't yet drive, and besides, Leon had our car. A couple days later, our real estate person, Bert, showed up, knocked on the back door. "Oh, hi," I said. "Just thought I'd stop by to make sure everything was okay," he said, adding, "The snow isn't too high now. Perhaps I could show you where your property goes." "Okay," I said, thinking at least it would be something to do. I put on my snow jacket, and we walked about 4 feet apart as he showed me a bit of a trail under aspen trees where the snow was not as deep. It was quite pretty. We turned back after 20 minutes. "Thanks," I said as he left. A week later, he showed up again. There had been several warm days and much of the snow had melted. We took a brief stroll down the aspen path. As we approached the house, he suddenly turned to me and said, "I was thinking how pretty you are. Why, thanks, I said. Putting a hand on my arm, he said, I'd like to get to know you better. After a moment of confusion, I felt both distaste and slightly complimented, like being catcalled by construction workers on a break. Then I was appalled. I slowly stepped back, retrieving my arm. As I moved towards my house, I called bye over my shoulder, went in the back door, and closed it firmly behind me. After a moment, I turned and locked the door.
Yeah, I like the build there of, so first of all, I mean, it's just a great setup with like the verb roaming, like roamed the house, figuring out the meals, the no car, the kind of way that we hear the narrator sort of, well, that's just the way it is, right? Like I'm just stuck in the house. And then the guy coming and, the first walk and walking 4 feet apart in the snow. And then he comes again. And here you might play with slowing down a little bit, because I was curious what she was, when he comes again, is there any feeling of like, oh no, or I don't know. I just was curious what, maybe not at all, maybe just anyway. And then the why, the first reaction when he says it externally is why thanks. But I wondered right away what her internal reaction was. And then the next one is the hand, the flattery, then the distaste, then the, being appalled, and then moving away into the house and locking the door. And I wonder if it might even start a beat earlier, like when she says, why thanks, I just want to know what that reaction is. So you kind of start and you get this great build going. So maybe just pull that a little bit earlier, like what was the first.
Good.
Yeah,
I'll do that.
but great.
Try it out.
Yeah, good. And it's tangling with your theme. So isn't that great?
Onward, yes.
Yeah. All righty. We're just moving up here. Debbie.
Hi. All you need to know is that the main character is in a police car. The policeman's driving her somewhere. Inmates from the local prison dotted the shoulders and median of the state road like giant neon orange flowers. The name of the prison stenciled black on their backs as they bent over to pick up beer bottles, cigarette butts, used tissues, the remains of the Kentucky Fried Chicken boxes with bare hands and uncovered faces. This was new garbage. Popeyes by the interchange down in Hillsborough closed after the shelter-in-place order, and
Wait,
so had the
Debbie,
coffee
we are
shops.
losing your
But the
sound.
KFC manager.
Debbie?
Oh, okay.
We're losing your sound. So I'm wondering if maybe you can put in it in the chat, and maybe turn off your video, Alas, just for while you're reading it, because I think that'll give us the bandwidth to hear you.
Okay. All right, hang on 1 second. Let me try.
It was around the description of the garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. All right.
Would you like to read it?
I will if you'd like, but I love hearing you read it. It just slowed down for a minute there.
Yeah. Why don't you read it?
Okay. Inmates from the local prison dotted the shoulders and median of the state road like giant neon orange flowers. The name of the prison stenciled black on their backs as they bent over to pick up beer bottles, cigarette butts, used tissues, the remains of the Kentucky Fried Chicken boxes with bare hands and uncovered faces. This was new garbage. The Popeyes by the interchange down in Hillsborough had closed just after the shelter-in-place order, and so had the coffee shops. But the KFC manager, a classmate from my months at the local high school, bought everyone paper masks and latex gloves from the dollar store before they ran out and kept the franchise open, 11 to 6, Monday through Sunday. I'd waited in line the day before M disappeared. Ooh, well, unexpected turn there. I love how we're kind of in the business of all of the negotiations of what's going on, and then we get to this kind of like this key plot point kind of dropped in, right, in terms of just as if it's just about locating us in time, which I like that. That's great. And then I love the giant neon orange, dotted the road like giant neon orange flowers. I mean, we just see them so vividly. and you know, and the new, this was new garbage, right? It's really interesting to see this writing about this time and what it means. Yeah, fantastic.
Thank you.
Really vivid. All righty. Catherine, where'd she go? Did she, wait, I'm like, there you are. You're way up top there. Like, that's what I meant, but we're going up, but I'm like, okay. Oh, wait, we both unmuted you. Can you unmute you again, then, please? Oh, you're muted now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry. I just, okay. This went in a different direction than I wanted. I'm just going to read it.
Right.
Okay. I never meant to kill, so it doesn't make me a murderer. I refuse to let this one act destroy, reverse even, all that is good about me. I woke up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and on my way back, a single light moving through the abandoned building next door snagged my attention. Why now, when I had too much to deal with? The answer pinged in my brain, and I tested it. I walked to the bedroom and stared between the building and the El Pollo Loco. There it was, the emerald green Ford 150 that Lee bought because it matched his wife's eyes. Why hadn't he approached us right away? He was waiting for me to leave. I would not leave. A woman is most vulnerable when she is about to escape. I would go to him. I suited up in my hazmat suit and grabbed a can of venom, holding it as a soldier would a rifle. That's it.
Wow. Venom.
Venom.
Wow. And hazmat. I love it. I love this. I'm like, whoa. First of all, I love her, like, I never meant to kill, so I'm not a murderer, right? Like, I love that.
Therefore, right.
Great verb, snagged, pinged, tested, like testing the theory. A woman is most vulnerable when she's about to escape. Really fascinating. And then, you know, leading into the hazmat suit and the venom. Yeah, fascinating.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Lisa T, will you unmute, please? And Shannon is next.
Okay, here I go. Greta had lingered by the toyon bush, examining the white dots, living creatures on the underside of a leaf. And she'd moved a little off the path to better see a flitting shape, a woodpecker with a red splotch on its head. Now she returned to the path and hurried to catch her parents and sister. But she came instead to a fork, a path to the right, a path to the left. No parents, no sister, no voices. The forest was quiet, and she saw now something she'd not noticed before, suddenly dark. It wasn't that late in the day, still afternoon, but the black oaks overhead were thick with leaves. The sky now suddenly the black of leaves that had lost their light. The air all around was dim and gray. Greta could see the air thickening, grayness multiplying all around her like layers of fabric dropping like curtains from the branches above. Where were her parents? Why hadn't they stopped? Hadn't they noticed their missing daughter? The fork on the trail wasn't familiar. They must have come this way before. Surely her parents had turned to head back to the parking lot, the car. Was it to the right or the left? Greta stood at the place where the paths converged, the path she'd come from, the one heading that way, the one going this way. She stood perfectly still, as still and quiet as she could be on the dirt, and listened for her parents. She listened so hard her ears hurt, so hard she heard the thumping of her heart and the echo of still air in her ears.
Wow, great. Also a kind of mystery, right?
Yeah.
I love the way that you write the perception. So like a flitting shape and then a woodpecker, right? So there's like the description comes as she figures out what it is. And so the first thing she sees is a flitting shape, and then it evolves, right? And so we have that experience also of like not knowing and then kind of having it resolve into an understanding. And then, you know, no parents, no sister, no voices. And then the sudden darkness and the, you know, and all of those, the words like thick and graying and the sense of fabric and, you know, layers of fabric. So just just again, like we're kind of in her perception as things are sort of suddenly turning and shifting. And I love that. And then listening, just the like how hard she's listening, and also like you have this great moment of like the paths converge, like the path going this way, the one heading that, like you sort of use heading and going, and it kind of the rhythms of it give us the sense of the crisscross paths too. So yeah, fabulous.
Thanks.
Interesting. Is this part of the other book?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a departure, but it's a new character in that book. So.
Great, I love it. It's nice, suspenseful.
Yeah.
All right, Shannon, don't leave. Or you're just sending the cat away.
I just had to. Yes, she's really hard to see through.
She doesn't understand that.
No. Okay, so the character Marcia has just found out she's not getting a much coveted job. Marcia walks around the building twice, certain that her eyes will well, her chest will tighten, her hands will turn into fists. On her third lap, Stephen calls to her through the kitchen screen door. Good news? News, she says, shrugging, still awaiting devastation. I have cinnamon rolls, Stephen says. You bake? You gotta be kidding. Camille brought them. Camille bakes? Even less likely, Stephen says, opening the door, his mouth full of roll. Come on in, tell me about it. It seems, though, that there's nothing to tell. I want the big one, she says, pointing to the corner roll.
Such good dialogue, right? Like, well, first of all, we've got the tightening and the hands trying to fit. I mean, all of that is very vivid. And then, so then he says good news and she says news, right? So that's that perfect, like she's echoing, but she's changing it in a crucial way. And then he offers her cinnamon rolls, which is so great and likable. And then I love you bake. Oh no, that they're from Camille. Oh, Camille bakes, even less likely, right? So there's just this wonderful rhythm and kind of the banter that but we feel her sort of pain too, right? And then there's not like you can tell me about it, but there's nothing to say. And so what she says is like, I want the big one, right? So it's that perfect subtext and the tension and the like possibility of some redemptive something, I don't know, with this nice person, but also in this very painful moment, which you give us so physically at the start. Yeah, really nice. Just the rhythm of that dialogue is really great. Well, great passion. Look at us being passionate in the middle of a pandemic, but with social distance. This is safe passion.
Safe passion.
Thank you, and Bree. My God, great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so remember, you too can request topics. Remember to look at the chat because people put notes in the chat for you. Oh, and here's how you can save it. So if you go, where it says, so anyway, I think everybody knows, right? You can open it with the chat icon at the bottom, scrolling down to the bottom, opens over there. You can type over there. And then at the far right, kind of down at the bottom, it says to everyone, and then farther over, ... If you click on that, it creates a menu, and the first item is save chat. So there you go. Then you will have it on your desktop somewhere, and you will have all those little compliments when you need compliments, which, let's face it, we need compliments.
Desperately.
True, right? True, specific praise is what we need to get through. So great job. And yeah, and so the next week there'll be it's the same. So Felicia, I didn't change up the class from Tuesday to Wednesday to Thursday. So it's the same alternate week, which is Carver and Baldwin for next week. And you'll see that they kind of echo these ones too. So
all right.
Yeah. And great work, everybody. Oh yeah, put your goal in the chat. We lost someone already, but here we go. Goals. I think we might have lost to homeschooling. There's a great piece about how crisis schooling is not homeschooling. And, very helpful. Homeschooling is not like panicked isolation in the midst of a pandemic. Right. live to write to live, and just live. Like that's right. Yeah, Debbie, that was
Survive.
Yeah. Above that, I see Debbie says, keep culling the book in the yearbook and take more pandemic notes. Great. It's funny because now I've gone back to my Kafka book and I'm writing about like the insane inflation in Berlin in the 1920s. And, when I wrote this years and years ago, I just was trying to wrap my head around it. And then just like seeing the like like the kind of unemployment numbers you just can't fathom. It's like, oh, that's what happened. Like, except it happened in the marks, the currency just went, and you had to, as soon as you got paid, you had to take your like wheelbarrow of almost useless cash and go buy something before the rates changed again. And it meant it was even less. So anyway, it's all very, that's the silver lining is like, oh, this is what it's like when crisis happens. And if we're writing about it, here we are. I would not, trade all the people's lives and well-being for that. We're just looking for the silver lining. All right, Cindy Sima Ivy, prepare excerpt for my group and return to the short story. Good. Keep those balls in the air, guys, so you have the next thing, which can be free writing. It like exploring toward the next thing. It doesn't have to be some definite plan. Cindy, type up my exercises. Pull out the draft of this old novel. Great. Diana, revise chapter 24. I think we lost her too because, it's like midnight or something, but ciao. Lisa Meltzer Penn, complete the lake chapter for memoir. Don't be too strict about what stays and goes. Keep the looseness to an extent, but trim a lot because there are a lot of repetitions. I will say on Tuesday night, people were just like kind of harsh on themselves because they hadn't done their goals right so I started reading all the goals with a question mark, sort of the adolescent girl style. Like, my goal is to keep writing, keep working, like maybe not. So we're definitely, I'm not going to do it because it's slightly annoying, but it's a good spirit to bring to this. Catherine says, keep working on the character Cassie and write the final battle for the first time. Yay, Marilyn saves her own baby. Go Marilyn. Shannon, keep going on the manuscript. Walk 10,000 steps a day. Oh, I should do that. But yes, that's good. Limit oatmeal cookie consumption.
Yeah.
Bree, continue on with my rewrite. I'm on chapter 3 with 37 to go. Looking for my muse. Excellent. Carolyn, for book in a year, start trying to find different final battle scenes. For dating book, keep going with review of identifying characteristics for each date, but be gentle with myself for how much I get done in a week. Yes. Chocolate, ice cream, just make it a reward for doing the other things. I will tell you one thing I'm doing. So while I'm waiting for Ellen to text me to exercise, Dorothy and I, get up. She started it and now I've joined her as of today, which is get up, get out of the house, take a photograph and send it. Just so that it's like, you have to, leave the house. Don't go far. Don't do something illegal, wear a mask, or whatever, but whatever it takes, if you need to do it out the window, but yeah. Mostly it's what do you need? And then how do you get someone else to like be your coat rack with, and you be theirs and like get some support so that, it becomes a little more fun and a little less of a should. I put that link in. It's Tin House. Let me see. I have it. Hold it up. It's earlier in the chat.
I have it.
Here we go. It's in the Tin House podcasts. So this is a link to their website, but there is also, it's on all the places you can get podcasts. And they have a bunch of, I've listened to some of these and early on, and I don't know if it's still up, but they had this great one about writing an essay years ago about writing an essay. That's like maybe the best thing I've ever heard about writing an essay, by Anne Hood, I believe. So anyway, all right. Great work, everybody. Have a wonderful or, survivable or just hang in there kind of week. It's all okay. Somebody was saying resilience, is not what you think you are doing during it. It's when you look back and you're like, look, I made it. So you're all being incredibly resilient. This is what it looks like. It's hard. If it weren't hard, it wouldn't be resilience. It would just be living. So hang in there. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Don't forget to save the chat.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.